I've got 100 slides to get through in 30 minutes. So I'm going to talk pretty fast, but there's lots of really useful information. So my deal to you is, don't try and make notes. If you stay right to the end, there's a QR code, scan the QR code. This presentation is already available online, so all the information I'm going to present today, you can absorb and digest at your leisure. So, what is growth hacking? The term was first used in 2010 by a serial entrepreneur called Sean Ellis, and he said, a growth hacker is a person whose true north is growth. Like, what the hell does this mean? I have no idea what that really means. So searching around the web, there's some sort of better descriptions, some sort of better quotes. It says, non-traditional ways of growing your market, that kind of makes sense. More focused on the objective and the process, yeah. Typically innovative, out of the box. So I combined what I think about sort of growth hacking is, and this is what the contents of the slides are. So this is my theory, and I've used quotes and sort of pictures and some examples as we go along. So first thing, there are no silver bullets. There are no silver cannonballs, as a growth hacker will tell you. Anybody who comes to you says, oh, develop your game and then just push the growth hacking button, they've got it wrong. There is no secret toolbox to growth hacking. Tools are important, we'll talk about tools later, but the secret is in the mindset, not the tool set. You have to think like a growth hacker, and that's the stuff I'm going to try and tell you about. So, what's the difference between growth hacking and traditional marketing? Well, traditional marketing, they're happy with a very mature business at a 5 to 10% growth. If you're an indie game developer or startup, you're kind of looking like a 10,000% growth. So you can't take the existing budget that the traditional marketing people will be and sort of scale it. It doesn't work that way. So you kind of need to come up with very creative, scalable solutions that you can use very efficiently. A couple of other differences. It's a read along with Nick's slide, but what's the differences between hacking and marketing? Marketing tends to be more established at longer frequency. We're doing a marketing plan rather than a growth hacking plan. Typically, if you're an indie or a startup, you don't have access to equity or brand, or no installed base. You probably have a small budget. There's more uncertainty because you have an untested product. Marketing has budgets. I like this quote. Budgets make people lazy. They begin to think in traditional terms and don't innovate. But the best quote I could sort of find out about for growth hacking is from this guy. It's during World War II, and he said, "Gentlemen, we have now run out of money. Now we have to think." And that's the mindset you want to get yourself in for a growth hacker's idea of, I've got no money, but I have to try and sort of promote my business. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So, this is your game. If a tree falls down a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? If you build it, they will come. That's not true. If you have the greatest game in the world and nobody knows about it, it's just the greatest game in the world that nobody knows about. So, content is king. Yes, you need a really great game, but distribution is God. You need to tell people about your game if you're going to have any chance of success. Another quote, visibility is oxygen. We were kind of naive. We thought if we made a really good product, it would just sell, but that's just not the case. Why is this a problem? This is kind of something I did before coming here. Best social game. There's quite a few results. And what's the problem? How often do you click down here? Sad fact, 86% of all apps downloaded from the App Store are in the top 10 charts. Let it sink in for you. User acquisition cost is probably going to be a single biggest expense. I should probably update this. This is quite a sort of old data. But $1.80 CPI, sometimes $2, $3. If you're in the casino business, probably even sort of higher still. You're spending an awful lot of money to sort of get people, and that's very hard. And also, history is written by the victors. You find out by sort of definition what sort of people who've been successful have done, but you don't learn out what the failures are. What are the people who failed did that you don't know about? So you can't necessarily just sort of follow what someone else has sort of done. Kind of example, these guys, they got 500 million views. If I told you to promote your game, you dress up like a fox and jump up and down, it wouldn't work for you. It worked for them because it was clever, it was creative, but it's not going to work for you. You can't necessarily just emulate what they've done. You just want to think about their mindset. Kind of other examples. Dumb Ways to Die. I remember sing the song, but they managed to parlay it into a top game. Flappy Bird, potato salad. What do all these things have in common? They made things that people wanted to share, not because they were told to share them. There was something funny, creative, sort of viral about the creative sort of campaigns that they used that made people want to share those things. So, at the end of the day, it's the product. If you have a good restaurant, you have a good restaurant because you serve great food. It's not because you tell people you serve great food. And growth hacking can be done with a garbage product. But at the end of the day, you're going to be turning yourself into a used car salesman. Fool me once, fool me twice. Yes, you can spend all this sort of time. So first advice is, players hate bad games too. So what you want to do is, serve great food. Don't be a used car salesman. Build a great product. So rule number 0, get yourself a great product before you even start growth hacking. Otherwise, you end up doing this sort of link baiting stuff, telling people to there, and they get there and they have a bad experience, and everyone's lost. The K factor, everyone sort of talks about the K factor, there's viral. I'm kind of more a physics guy, so it's sort of neutrons sort of go in. But if you can talk to a person and convince them to buy your product, that's great, but you don't want to have to pick up the phone and call 32,768 sort of customers. You call one customer, they evangelize that until 2 goes to 4 goes to 8, and it goes on from there. So get your users to be your ambassadors, because that's the way you can sort of scale things, and leverage other technology. Use Facebook to sort of get people to share your product rather than having to contact them individually. A/B testing. Anybody here not doing A/B testing? Go home. Go directly to jail. Do not collect $200. A/B testing is critically important. You can't get better unless you understand what's right and what's wrong. A/B testing humor. We'll move on. At the end of the day, it's the taste of the fish, not the taste of the fisherman. Don't be a prima donna, data levels all arguments. Your designers say, oh, it should be red text, people don't know what's going on. No, whatever the audience wants is what they sort of get. And that A/B testing helps you get your product better and build a product for what people want. It's iteration. Iteration is the name of the game. Wash, rinse, repeat. Try something. Learn from the results and the mistakes. There's ways not to do things. Iterate, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. You have to measure everything. If you don't know if you've got better or worse. There is no such thing as a failed experiment. Only experiments with unexpected outcomes, Buckminster Fuller. Again, repeating the same things. If you don't measure everything, how can you see if it's improved? There's a great quote from a Scottish poet, Andrew Lang. Said, he uses statistics as a drunken man uses lampposts for support rather than illumination. What does that mean? Well, if you think, I'll reduce the price of the product and I'll sell more, and you reduce the price of the product and you sell more, you haven't really proved anything. You've proved it, but you haven't actually learned anything. What the data science kind of is, how much do I reduce it, and what's the shadow value increase in sales I get from that? And that's when you learn things on it, by actually measuring things rather than just using it to prove what you think you already know. Be data-driven. Testing always beats guessing. I'll rub that in a little bit later on. I'll see if you've been listening. This guy, again, I know you can read, but I like to read it. I never guess. It's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Always be testing. Always be testing. And that sort of helps you when you go into meetings or when you argue with people. It's like, you won't like me with angry because I back up my rage with facts, data, and documented sources. Who am I? I'm the credible Hulk. So you can't measure, do your best to measure everything, but if you can't, errors using inadequate data are much less than those using data at all. Who said this? The father of the computer, Charles Babbage. Okay, now let's bring it back to games. How much water is in the bath? You stay with me and understand. This is your game. There's a fascination in the industry about measuring DAO, although Facebook, we call it DAP. If I say DAP and MAP, I mean daily active people and monthly active people rather than daily active users and monthly active users. It's just we like to think of people as people. But there's a fascination. I don't understand what it is about people measuring sort of daily active users. At any time, your game can go up and can go down. And why does this happen? Well, you hemorrhage people, you lose people at the bottom, and you get new players coming on the top. But if all you're doing is measuring sort of DAP, you're hiding a multitude of sins. Imagine sort of 2 examples. We've got a game over here which sort of sucks. Everybody who sort of joins the game, just like plays the game, oh, it sucks, and they hemorrhage at the bottom. You've got another game over here, exactly the same DAP, day to day, but this game is just sort of awesome. It sort of retains people. It's super sticky, but your marketing team is a very bad job at sort of bringing people into the site. But if they're both looking a million here and a million there, and then a million there the next day, there's a difference between them. So are you looking at a source or a sink problem? And they're very different problems to solve. So, basic sort of dashboard, again, advice number part 1 is, break it down. Acquisition, engagement, retention, monetization. Make dashboards for these today, even if you don't have them, because the price of light is less than the cost of darkness. We'll go through these things, and I'll give you a bit of a dating analogy. Acquisition, it's a first date. Kind of anybody could get a first date. It's sort of pretty easy. I mean, you pay a little bit of money, but you can get a date. It's getting that second date and the third date and the fourth date. So in the acquisition business, you're in the eyeball delivery business. How can you get people to try your game for the first time? If you're in the acquisition side of the team, your job is to line up blind dates. Getting the second date, that's that little bit harder. Getting the user at the aha moment. 1 in 6 apps doesn't get a third date. They've gone to the effort of downloading your app. You've paid that $1.80, whatever it is, CPM, $2. They've got there. They've tried it once. They've tried it twice. The third time, it sort of sucks. So your game has to very quickly get people to that aha moment. They get it, which means your game has to be pretty simple, easy to pick up, or whether it's tutorial, whatever it happens to be. You need to be able to get people that aha moment very quick, within 3 tries. Otherwise, it's pretty much sort of game over. And again, talking about the long tail of content, over 20% of songs on Spotify have never been even played once. And you know what it's like on the App Store. There's a million apps there. There's this craptacular amount of content on there. How are you going to get your game visible and on there? It's small slides. I don't have a lot of time to sort of go through, but there's a great study. This actually, on the x-axis, it talks about the number of apps that a user has installed, and the y-axis, the probability. And what you see is it's very unlikely that somebody has 100 apps on their phone. What it's telling you is most people have 10 or 20 apps on their phone. There's a couple of dozen apps. That's the space that you're competing for. And then this is it's kind of a little bit more complicated, but this is the probability, and this is the number of users per app. Down over here, we have the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the WhatsApp. I'm painting a very pessimistic picture. What I'm telling you is there are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 must-have apps that pretty much every phone has on them. And then all the rest of that 2 dozen is just spread across on this very thin ground. So it's a brutal place to be in, unfortunately. This is, again, another slide you're not even going to be able to see because of mouse type. But what they did here is they took the upper quartile, the top 25% of all the apps, and then they took the top 1% and did the ratio of that 1 to the 25. And you can sort of see on the bottom, there's various different things like a percentage of lifetime value, all the rest of stuff. And you can see 50 times, 10 times, 5 times. Being at the top is really, really, really important. The darker blue lines is the ratio of 1% to 5%. So again, you can see it really is a 1% rule for making a lot of money on games. Sorry to tell you that. So acquisition, engagement, retention. Now you've got into a relationship with somebody. Fix your bucket first. Buckets with holes probably need fixing more than they need more water on the top. You're spending all this money pouring water into the top of your funnel. It's costing you $2 to $3 per person. Then 1 in 6 is getting it through there. And then they get to the game, and your game's sort of kind of sucky. Get your game ready before you sort of get it out there. Otherwise, all the effort, you're wasting the efficiency that sort of comes in at the top. Then finally, the wedding. It's the lifetime value. This is not a marathon. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So take care. Your most valuable users tend to be the early adopters, and they tend to be the strongest ambassadors as well. I'm kind of a gaming geek, so I play all the games that sort of come out there. My friends who are probably not as gaming geeks as me will come up to me and say, hey, Nick, I played Farmville, I played sort of Candy Crush, I played this. What's the next best game I should sort of use? And I'll say, oh, don't try that game. It's not ready yet. This is the game you want to use. And I'm the brand specifier for those sort of people. Early adopters tend to be the people who not only spend more money, they tend to tell other people about it. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, which is hard to balance as software as a service. There's some bogus advice many years ago. Oh, get this minimum viable prototype, get your game out there and get people sort of trying it. And as I've got some other slides later on to show you, that's definitely the wrong advice. You really have to get it baked before you release it out, or at least feature complete and pixel polished all the way down this way. The key to success, cost per install, lifetime value. If one is bigger than the other, you're going to make money. If it's the other way around, you're going to just slowly or quickly lose money. Another important, 93% of revenue from freemium is on mobile is from freemium. This means you need an ongoing relationship with your customers. In the past, when you used to buy brick and mortar things or deluxe downloads, you got the money in advance, and then whether they liked the game or not, that didn't really matter. You've already got the money. You're home working on your next sort of game. Now, 93% of your money is coming from people who are going to be paying later on. They could try the game. The game itself is the advert. The game itself is the test drive. And they play it for a week or so, and then the paywall comes up, the paygate comes up. So, well, do you spend a couple of dollars? I don't mind spending a couple of dollars. I had a good experience at that particular time. So you need that ongoing relationship with your customers if you're going to be successful. I'll put this resurrection slide in. It's a very macabre sort of slide. But it's cheaper to bring someone back from the dead than it is to find somebody new. So if you've got some customers and you sort of lost them, just a little bit of a re-engagement campaign can really help. On Facebook, we have a good customer in Europe, Nordius. They do a football manager. They spent $3,500 on a re-engagement campaign. Any ideas how much they got back, straight back? About 121,000 of immediate return. And the idea of, here's a special offer, come back to the game, and they all came back and they made money. And then they stayed in the game after that. Keep at it. Everything's going to compound in this sort of growth hacking business. Mathematicians out there. If I make a 1% improvement in everything I do for a year, 365 days, I've got a 37-fold increase. Make a 1% decline for a year, I end up at about 2.5% of where I started. It's a glass half full, glass half empty thing. But just keep going, that compounding interest. Growth hacking is not new. Anyone remember these things? Can you guess why a company called themselves AAA Plumbing? Or when you look in directories, the canonical forms, when they were printed, did Heathrow, Hilton, Heathrow, so they could be in multiple locations in the directory. When Facebook first started, one of the most popular games was Little Green Patch. You know why? The ASCII sorting order of brackets, they appeared at the top of the list. If you did a list of games, that game came right at the top. And if you listen to Jeff, he chose the name of Amazon because it started with an A. Growth hacking. Seize everything. There's a lot of science, but there's also a huge amount of luck. So when fortune shines upon it, you have to be ready to exploit it right away at that particular sort of point. There's a fire hose of media content that we sort of live in. Here's my Twitter stream that sort of goes by. You get seconds to get noticed, or retweeted, or sort of shared. So you need some friction to encourage people to think about, talk about your product. Creative headlines. What gets you to click on a headline? I'm not talking about link bait. It's in that goes back to the used car salespeople. If you tell somebody over there and they have a disappointing experience, fool me once, fool me twice, never getting away with. But what are the headlines that are going to cause people to go through? The secret to this, how to avoid the big. What are you doing? All these things, little known ways. What's going to get you to click? Think that way, and then sort of create some great content that they can as a destination they can get to. But create a creative headline. And remember the mining accident in Chile? This guy's wearing Oakley sunglasses. Some creative guy at sort of Oakley said, hey, we should sort of ship them a crate of sunglasses so they can sort of wear them. It's estimated that 1 billion people around the world watch this rescue live. And somebody sort of sat down and calculated, they got $41 million of their logo on primetime sort of TV just by FedExing them a couple of crates of sunglasses. Growth hacking, awesome. This is the interest of time. You have an incredibly narrow window to sort of get noticed. Maybe you've got a game about a Peruvian tree frog, and you're driving home on NPR, or there's a news article that talks about a Peruvian tree frog. You want to be on it straight away. Said, oh, love the article about this. No, we've got a game about a Peruvian tree frog. And if you wait until Monday morning or Tuesday next week, it's gone by because there's this tidal wave and this sort of constant beat that goes by. Every chance of opportunity you've got that even vaguely related, right on the coattails of it, sort of go through. So seize every opportunity. A couple other examples. Paris Hilton got banned from some hotel in Vegas. I have no idea why. She sort of did something. Some other hotel chain, unrelated to this incident, sort of said, well, Paris Hilton's also banned from our hotel, blah, 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 blah. The Google spiders picked it up because they had a well-written text and tag and all the rest of stuff. If you search for Paris Hilton, you actually get the article related to these guys, not the actual hotel where she was actually banned from. They were riding on the coattails of that sort of great story. Again, great piece of growth hacking. This guy, okay guy, he went to CES, he crashed the party. Oh, I just wanted to listen to music. Headline news because he crashed the competitor's party. Awesome, growth hacking. Now, this is a read along with Nick's slide. It gives me a chance to sort of slow down a bit. But there's so many possible ingredients that you can do with growth hacking. You should be doing a combination of all of these things: blogging, podcasts, webinars, white pages, infographics, conferences, SEO, keywords, publishing partners. All these things should be things that you should be thinking about doing. There's no just one strategy for promoting your products. Use them all. Paid installs, ads, tweets, backlinking, incentives, word of mouth, TV, radio. Oh, and Facebook. Actually, you should use that. Does one of those stand out a little bit? You've got to get noticed any way you can, even if it's just a sort of subtle. Anecdotally, the Angry Birds logo is red. Why? Well, when they were launching, most of the icons were slightly sort of bluer in tint, and you're flipping by, you've got milliseconds to get noticed. And anything that just pops out just that little bit is going to make a fraction of a difference. You're talking a huge denominator. Test for you. Which icon would you use for a kid's game? No, test, don't guess. It may be that three-legged dogs appeal to kids. I mean, you're probably right, as it happens, as for the look at the other slide. But at the end of the day, test. It's not hard to test. You'll find out. And again, I'm dealing with, there are 1.45 billion people on my site. A 0.5% improvement on anything that sort of goes on, I can save $1 million alone on server costs, never mind sort of shipping love to all these sort of people. It's a huge denominator. So moving the needle just a little bit has a huge difference. But you're probably right. Eyes do really work. So if you do your icon, another piece of advice is big eyes. You look at big eyes, big eyes. People love big eyes in games. The other thing to notice on here, look at the screenshots there. you can instantly grok what the game's about by looking at the screenshot. They've shown the animation. I know this is a farming game. I know this is a match 3 game. I know this one's I'm going to click and go through there. Again, imagine people are scrolling by. They have milliseconds. No, 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 no. So testing just to get the right screenshots out there to encourage people to just that pause a little bit before circling again makes a huge difference. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing fine on time. A little mic drop sort of thing. Switching the shade of blue using advertising links in Gmail made the company an extra $200 million a year. Just by changing the color blue. Testing. It's, there's the longest I've talked about, but there's something called fuzzy trace theorem about, what do you remember about today's presentation? In the short term, you'll probably remember very, very specific details. If you leave this particular room and say, well, what? Oh, I remember this and this and this. But in a week's time, he said, what do you remember about Nick's presentation? Oh, it was bloody brilliant, and he talked really fast, but I can't remember any specific stuff. It's the same, you've been to see a stand-up comedian, you watch a comedian, you laugh and laugh, laugh, and you go home, and your spouse says, was it funny? He said, oh, it was hilarious. Well, tell me one of the jokes. So, I can't remember any of the jokes, but it was really funny. And it's that sort of concept between sort of the gist, and it's the same with your advertising, your creative, all the rest of the stuff. You kind of have to appeal to the emotional side of the brain. Okay, plug for Facebook. If Facebook integration is part of your strategy, you are crazy. So crazy I use Comic Sans for the font sort of here, if anybody's there. But don't leave green on the screen. It's not hard to put Facebook integration on there. As it happens, Facebook players convert better into paying users than non-Facebook players. They spend more. Some quotes. Uga, 9 times more likely to spend money than players who don't connect with Facebook. What is this one? 3 times more likely to return, 7 times more likely to spend money. 85% more. Hands up, who doesn't want an 85% pay rise? Why does this work? I'll tell you the secret. It's so much better to shoot your friends than shoot an anonymous stranger. It's so much more fun to knock Uncle Bob at the top of the high score table than some kid in Nebraska who posts max int just because he's sort of hacked the protocol. It's all about sort of connecting. Games are more fun when you play them with people you know and love and care about. So we talked about this before, but on the second wave, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So the first generation, I won't say Zynga, but those games, they got the games out there immediately, and then they said, oh, we'll tweak it, games as a service. That's wrong, because you don't get a second chance for a first impression. You really want to get the mechanics right. And today's early adopters, Varro introduced more people. We talked about that before. But don't be a bad date. And we talked about the dating thing before. If you went on a date with this guy, and he says, well, I can change. Oh, you wanted me to shower. Well, I'll shower, then we'll have another date. Oh, you wanted me to comb my hair. Well, I'll comb my hair. No, the first impression is really important. So getting your game out there, that first aha, wow factor is really, really important. We're doing fine on time. Retention rates. This is the months after launch. What it pretty much sort of tells you is the early adopters that we talked about before, this first in, last out. People who log into your game for the first time in the first month, 6% of them will be there a year later. If they wait a year before trying your game, there's only about 0.63%. So how long you wait before adopting. So the early adopters tend to be the people who tend to be the stickier people in the game. It's just what it happens to be. So again, you're going to piss off your most valuable people if you launch a game that's not baked right. And that ratio is so high, it's better to delay a launch and get it really as a baked product than getting it out too soon. Anybody who says, oh, get it out there and tweak it around and get the feedback. No, that's wrong. You really need to get a baked product out. That's really, really important. A little bit of information on sort of Facebook. It's a big place. This is year-end results. We just announced our first quarter, so we're already up to 1.44. There are now 1.25 billion monthly active people who use Facebook on a mobile device. That's pretty huge. Let you into a secret. The world is moving mobile. I couldn't believe this stat. I mean, it came out for the UK. People take out their phones on average in the UK 250 times a day. I still can't believe it, but they did a survey last year. It was 221, so it can't have been a mistake, but it sort of goes by. And they're spending 8 minutes a session for about 30 or 50 minutes a time. So you kind of need to rethink your games for sort of touch first. When you used to do PC games, you'd hover over the mouse, a little tooltip would come up there, but you don't really have the concept of hover or on a game. And again with a tablet, when I'm sort of playing a lot of tablet games, my fingers are now all over the screen, and I can't really see the real estate, which with the mouse, you can look at the screen. So you actually need to think about redesigning your games for sort of tablet first and mobile first, rather than just saying, oh, well, I'll port over my existing game. Facebook's kind of a big play. So we're coming to the end. I've got 5 minutes to go. If you download the slides after, there's some bonus deck that tells you how you can talk about sort of slide share things. But you need a growth hacker for your company. How do you find one? Well, you need to look for somebody who loves data and understands it. somebody who's curious, even a little naughty. What can I get away with? What would happen if I did? What if I changed this? You know, always testing things. Leverages every opportunity that sort of comes by, moves fast, creates scalable solutions, and seizes all chance for visibility. And if there's any sort of thing, a data scientist is the sexiest job of the 21st century, according to the Harvard Business Review. So that's what it happens to be. Hackers, there's all this talk about sort of unicorns, and that's the total garbage. You know, your job says you're a hacker. If you're not breaking down walls and challenging the way you're doing things, you're kind of doing it wrong. So it's all about being a growth hacker, about like being a Swiss Army penknife. It's not like being a unicorn. It really isn't. And with that in mind, I don't have time to go through the appendix, but I'll preview to it. So the reasons for why you should download these slides later. This is all the reasons about why people share things. But the reason I want to get all the way to the end is because I promised you the QR code that you can all capture. One more. There we go. If you scan this, you'll find a location where the slide deck that I've just presented is already there online. Thank you very much. I know I've talked very, very quickly. Have a wonderful day here at Power of Play, and I'll be around the rest of the day if you want to sort of chat to me afterwards. Thanks.
Really good, really good.